Dovetails are a very strong, attractive joint. Today I'm going to show you how easy they are to make. I use the Keller Dovetail system. This is a template system that it's near impossible to cut the joint wrong. I've had this system since I think about the mid-90s. I picked it up at a woodworker show. It's a pair of templates, one to cut the tails and the other one to cut the pins. I like to think of the tails as the slot. It's the big wide dovetails, but it's the slots that the pins go into. And it also comes with two router bits with a bearing. The bearing rides on this surface here. And the straight template, the one that's parallel like a long slot, uses the angled bit or the dovetail bit. And then the template that for cutting the pins that has the angles on it uses a straight sided bit. So it's pretty easy to keep that in mind. What I really like about this system is being a home builder and a remodeler, my tools, along with the smart wood shop and my workbenches, go to the job with me. I set up my wood shop where I'm working. And to be able to do fun things like dovetails where I'm working on a client's job, I like to use this kind of thing as a surprise. To pick a point, I want to overdo it. I want dovetails everywhere. But if I can pick a feature point, around a fireplace or some bookcases or maybe a mantle, maybe a set of floating shelves, a nice project that I can pick and use the dovetail to really emphasize craftsmanship. The Keller system is nice because it's very portable. I can use it where my shop is set up. I can also take it anywhere with me. It's not a big complicated rig or tool. In fact, the boards you see here, I just replaced these. I've really gotten into these T-tracks since I'm making them myself now, and I'm playing around with some clamping and stuff for a future thing. I'm going to see how they work out. But anyway, I can replace these boards as they get old and beat up and worn. The templates, no matter how much I use them, they don't get cut at all because the bearing is riding on them. So the only thing you really wear out is the bit. I've had a number of other dovetail systems. I've cut some by hand, not my preference. Again, I'm a production finish carpenter, not a woodworker. So I need things to be set up for production and accuracy and repeatability. So I've had a couple of different systems. I had a very large, very complicated system called a lay dovetail jig. It was a big system that had a lot of adjustability, and because I don't use it all the time, every time I got it out, setting it up and having the manual to make sure I did things right. These I don't need to do that. I don't need to look at a manual. It's just very easy to use. I've already prepared my material. I've ripped some boards to the same width. I've got two different lengths here, and I'm going to use two for the sides and two for the front and back. I've planed them so they're the same thickness. So if I were going to finish this box up, this would be a good starting point. I start with the tails. So again, that template is the straight cut. The nice thing about this being straight and the angle being cut with the bit is that I can actually double down on this cut and cut two boards at the same time. Setting up the template to cut the tails is pretty simple. I can just eyeball it. It doesn't really matter where I set them because this system is very much like hand cutting, where I'm going to take, after I cut the tails, I'm going to take them to set up the other jig for the pins. So again, it really doesn't matter where I put them. If I want an offset, I can just offset it one way or the other. But if I want to center them, and most of the time that's what I do, is just find a center mark on the board. After marking the center of the board, and I don't have to be real careful about that. Again, this is more visual. This is not going to impact the tightness of the joint. The joint will fit no matter where I put it. But if I want to keep it center, the template itself, to line it up, I need to actually mark either side of that center point 7/16 of an inch. With that offset mark, now I can take the template and set one side of any of the fingers on there. I'm kind of centering it just so it's balanced. It doesn't really matter. I'm only be cutting these two right here. Mine is the 2401, so it's a 24-inch, but there is no sides on this. So if I had a really wide board, say if I was doing a bar edge or something, I could just make all of these cuts and then just step it down. There's no limit on how wide of a board I can make these dovetails. Once it's set to that mark, then I'll clamp it in place. The material is firmly clamped to the bench, and now the jig is firmly clamped to the material. So I've got a nice stable platform to work off of. I'm going to be pulling the cut toward me. All the cuts are made toward me. And with this first cut, there is no side to side. It's a straight in cut. To set the depth of my cut, I'm going to take a piece of the material I'm using. All the materials are the same thickness. And I'm going to scribe a line right on the material that I'm going to cut. With that line, now I will take the router and set the bit so that it is to the line and a little bit further. It's a little too far there. The further it is, the more that the tails and the pins will go past each other. Now we want that because we want to be able to cut that off. We don't want them exactly flush, and we certainly don't want them set in a bit. So we want to cut them just a little bit deeper, but not too deep. With the depth set and everything clamped, I'm ready to start making my cuts. But as the Smart Woodshop family knows, I am a router-centric shop, so I have lots and lots of routers. So I have the luxury of setting up the second bit and a second router. So since I'm here, I'm going to set the depth of that as well. By the way, you don't need two routers to do this. You can make all of your cuts for your tails, and once you're all done, then you can change the bits and use the same router to do both. Now it's time to start making some sawdust. Because of the width of the material and I'm centered, I just have the two cuts to make. If I were a little bit wider, I may have some half cuts that I would cut in on the sides, a wider piece. I just keep marching my way down until all the cuts are made. The side of the material that's away from you that you're cutting into is the outside. That's the side you're going to see. So it's important when you're going to cut the other side that you don't flip it around, that you rotate it. I'll repeat what I did on the other end. I'll first find my center point and then my offset of 7/16 of an inch. With my Festool router, I have a vacuum attachment that I normally use, but because I'm filming this and it kind of gets in the way, I'm just letting the dust fly. When I cut with my big Milwaukee, I don't have a vacuum for that. With the tails cut, it's time to cut the pins. The pin template is an angle, and because of that, I cannot cut both pieces at once. I have to cut them individually. Making sure that this side of the material is the side that I want to be visible. Exactly like you would do if you're hand cutting dovetails, I'll take the actual material that I've cut and scribe a couple of marks where I am placing them. It's covering up where the material will not be cut. When cutting the pins with the straight cutter, there is going to be some side to side cutting, not straight, just a single cut like we were cutting the tails. What I'll do is I will come in and I will just skim across the edge a bit, cutting in the edge before I plunge all the way in. And that's just to cut those fibers so I'll get a nice clean cut. Like before, I'm not rotating the material this way. I am rotating it so I'm keeping the same face away from me. If you enjoy hanging out with me in the Smart Woodshop, be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And remember, when you subscribe, to ring that bell so you'll know when I put up a new video. Also, if you'd like to get a set of plans to build one of my smart workbenches or the Smart Woodshop, there's a link in the description of this video down below. The next step is to glue and clamp. Once the glue is dry, then I would take a hand plane or a flush cut router bit or even a sander and take the tails and the pins down flush, clean it all up, and then it's ready for finish. Thanks for dropping into the Smart Wood Shop. You stay safe and have a great day.